book of Habakkuk. We were laughing about that this past week with Diane about, I throwed that book out there, and I know everybody's thinking, your Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, you're trying to go through all the books to find where is that. That's when a phone comes in handy, because you just click and all the names are there, and you just punch on the book and you're right there. But anyway, we're not going back there. We're going to the book of Proverbs again. We talked about Proverbs last Sunday evening, about wisdom that we have from the book of Proverbs. And last week we talked about fear of the Lord was really the beginning of knowledge, and how that knowledge that we have, then we apply. And that's really what wisdom is. And so this afternoon I want to talk a little bit about back in the book of Proverbs, but use one example in particular, and that's about being a friend or friendship. That's Solomon has a lot to say about that in this book, and there are four primary ideas that he throws out there. And so think about not only who your friends are, we think about these things, but think about what kind of friend you are when we look at these. And one of the first things he says is a friend, the idea of constancy, and that's a little bit hard to say, but it's being constant, being a friend that's there at all times, when times are good, when times are bad. You need friends in both of those situations. And Solomon points out in his book that there are a lot of people who will be friends with you if it serves their own interest. They're your friend if there's something they have to gain there. And he especially points this out with regard to wealth and riches. In Proverbs 19 and verse 4, he says, wealth adds many friends, but a poor man is separated from his friend. In Proverbs 19 and 6, he said, many will entreat the favor of a generous man, and every man is friend to him who gives gifts. And so when you think about your friends and think about the kind of friend you are, it's easy to be friends with somebody who's giving all the time and providing and doing that kind of thing. And but he goes on the other way, and that's sort of a warning, those first two verses, but he goes on to urge us to appreciate those who show loyalty and helpfulness and don't abandon us for others, or don't abandon us when times may be tough. Proverbs 27 and 10, do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend, and do not go to your brother's house in the day of calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother far away. You live next door to your neighbor, you see them every day, and it'd be nice to be friends with them, because there's going to be constant contact just about with those people. And I think that's the idea that Solomon's trying to get at here. Second one is being candid about your friendship and about your friends. Many times we want to tell people, many times we want people to tell us what we want to hear rather than what we need to hear. We want people to tell us, things that make us feel good and whatever, but sometimes we need to hear the opposite. Proverbs 25 and 5, a man who flatters his neighbor is spreading a net for his steps. What does that mean? A man who flatters his neighbor is spreading a net for his steps. Well, that means it's a trap, right? It's spreading a net for his steps. That's how you catch an animal. That's how you catch somebody else. And he says if you're getting all this flattery from somebody, you might need to be watching out. There could be a trap being set. Proverbs 28:23, he who rebukes a man will afterward find more favor than he who flatters with the tongue. So sometimes telling people what they need to hear, as we said, is, really they should look at you more as more of a friend, and you are more of a friend to be able to do that. So a true friend tells us the truth, even if it's not necessarily what we want to hear from time to time. The third point that he talks about is giving counsel. Solomon stressed two sides of good advice. He praised the counsel of agreement that makes us feel more secure. sometimes people tell, hey, you're doing the right thing, you're doing a good job or whatever. And so Proverbs 29 and verse 9, he says, oil and perfume make the heart glad, so a man's counsel is sweet to his friend. This is the support that says you're doing the right thing, and I'm with you in what you're trying to accomplish. But he also praised the counsel of disagreement. Sometimes, like I said, people have to tell us other things. In Proverbs 27 and 17, he says, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Somebody that can sit down with us and say, hey, we're not headed in the right direction, or we need to go in this direction, and make us aware of what our flaws are and maybe what our thinking's not correct about something, or we're not being consistent in the things that we're doing. And so a friend is somebody that can sit down with you and point those things out, or you're a friend to somebody that you can sit down and talk to them about those things and make both people better because of that. And finally is being considerate of other people. Solomon points out that we don't always have the right sensitivity to others about their thinking, their personality, or their feelings. And I think this is where he has a couple of things here that are in a way humorous in the way he points them. In Proverbs 25 and 17, let your foot rarely be in your neighbor's house, lest he become weary of you and hate you. Have you ever heard the term, you can wear out your welcome? You can, if you're there every day, sooner or later they get tired of seeing you show up. That's sort of the point he's getting at here. And this is the one I think is a little more humorous. Proverbs 27 and 14. He who blesses his friend with a loud voice early in the morning will be reckoned a curse to him. You're a great guy, but if I tell you you're a great guy at 6 o'clock in the morning at the top of my voice, that may not really be the time you want to hear it, right? So he's saying, be sensitive to other people's issues or other people's personality or whatever. That's not the time they want to hear they're a great guy is, you busting in the door very early in the morning. Proverbs 26, 18 and 19. Let a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death, so is a man who deceives his neighbor and says, I was just joking. All right? This guy that says all these bad things to you or bad things about you, and then when you sort of call his hand on it, oh, I'm just kidding. I was just joking. Well, he probably wasn't if he said it to start with. A lot of times we talk first and think later. And I think this is the point that he's trying to get. We have to be sensitive to others in their situations. And there's times to try to correct things. There's times to try to encourage. But sometimes there's times you got to let it go and let it be and go on with what needs to be done. So just some things to think about as we deal with everyday things, and I think that's what Proverbs does a lot of the wisdom that Solomon has there is just how to deal with everyday problems with friends, with proper respect we should have for God. Talks about a lot of other things, and we will probably talk about some of those more in the future. There's plenty there to talk about. But just some things to think about this afternoon. If you're here and need our help, as we always say, we're certainly willing to do that, want to help you. We all want to get to heaven. That's our goal. So as we help each other to accomplish that and do that, then that's the best for us all. If we can help you anyway, let us know as we stand and sing, Brother John.